I'm a plant biologist, and I began studying climate change not because of the climate, because of what the impact of elevated CO2, the cause of climate change, is on plant growth. Plants are responding strongly to climate change. We know this globally because the globe is actually greening in response to climate change. But in what I study, which is the response of the Australian grape industry to climate change, and we've studied more than 40 vineyards from all around Australia, and what we've found is over the last 20 years, the harvest in those vineyards has moved forward somewhere between a day and perhaps a day and a half a year. So it means that in most cases, people are on average harvesting their crop a month early. Temperatures when we finally ripen the grapes are actually hotter, not only because of climate change, but because it's an earlier month. So what might be 1 degree of climate change, which we've already experienced, is actually 3 to 4 degrees because it's an earlier month. What hurts grape farmers the most at this point is the heat waves, which can sunburn the grapes. It can hasten the ripening very much of the grapes. And also, off-farm, there is a bigger problem. When we speed up ripening, all the grapes ripen together. And wineries take about 2 to 3 weeks to ferment the grapes when they arrive into wine. If they all arrive together, the wineries don't have the capacity to accept those grapes. You end up having to leave the grapes in the vineyard for a longer period than you want to, and you perhaps lose some flavour in those grapes. You go to a higher sugar and therefore a higher alcohol level, and you produce not your best wines. There is changes in varieties occurring. People are looking very much at the Sicilian varieties, the southern Mediterranean varieties, as opposed to the French varieties that are more cool climate. People are used to drinking Shiraz, they're used to drinking Cabernet Sauvignon, they're used to drinking Sauvignon Blanc. To change them to a new variety is not an overnight thing. But the winemakers are now getting very inventive and beginning to blend varieties together. But in the vineyard, it is creating problems. While it's hard to think in terms of what 1 degree hotter means, because it varies every day, when it gets so much drier and when the dams don't fill, when you're short of irrigation water, when the irrigation allocations each year are not 100%, sometimes down to 50 or 60%, and when your bore on your particular property goes dry and you don't have livestock water, that's the problem. We need to work very hard on how we conserve our water better and how we perhaps allocate it better. Australia needs to be engaged in climate change. 85% of the growers in the Australian wine industry acknowledge that climate change is happening. They are trying to do something about it. All industries should get to that position. It doesn't mean you have to run out and change what you do immediately, but you need to know what's coming down the road towards you. And in that, it's a matter of becoming more resilient to some of the worst aspects of climate change. But there are also opportunities in climate change. Unless you're engaged, you won't spot those opportunities early enough to in fact take full advantage of them.